We're live now.
Wasn't it a wonderful bridge ceremony?
It was an absolute one, and you know who the star was?
Oh, get me a microphone, no problem, right, Sheriff? I mean, I'm second on, don't get between me and the
Thanks, Jim, for
microphone.
rushing in.
Well,
Appreciate it.
Joe got here first, but he didn't stay for the ice cream, I did.
Okay, now it's time for public safety meeting. And we'll start with Sheriff Rudolph with number one, operational updates.
I don't have much to highlight other than we did get one of the deputies back from workers' comp for the last couple of weeks, so that's good.
Okay, number two, overnight travel authorization for the sheriff to attend the annual New York State Association of Chiefs and Police Training Conference.
This is a conference of sheriffs and chiefs addressing modern issues.
I'm sure it is. Yes. Okay. Motion, Mr. Gill makes a motion, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Number three, professional service contract revenue for, this is for Elytra Central School. For law enforcement and police services when the school is in session.
Yeah, 3 and 4, there's addresses in there as well. Starting no contract with the school resource officer. Last month we talked about Wyoming schools being a lone district out there, not several. I talked to Supervisor Brewer and the superintendent, and I think what they're ultimately going to do is try to do some sort of MOU with the Coach in Wyoming and the Warsaw Police Department. That's what we're trying to do. Reason being is our bill is huge. I think the Warsaw Police Department can do it for around $21 an hour per charge. $5 to $6 an hour official charge French. Just something to think about. I hate to lose these programs. And it's getting more and more expensive. I think in the budget letter, I'm gonna ask for fringe to be removed and try to get that cost down a little bit more so we don't end up losing more schools. Just food for thought. I just throw the teaser out there.
I think there'll be any money coming for that, Becky. How about
No, I haven't heard.
the stuff that's going on? So.
I would think they would want to do that,
I would too.
tend to take a different stance to the cause.
You talking legislatively, like for grants and stuff?
Well, yeah, well, we're funding because of in the way what's going on.
Correct.
Right, I mean, for the last few years, downstate has used school resource officers as the pipeline to prison. Just don't have the same thing. You can look it up, pipeline to prison and service.
Would like to make the motion for this one.
I got one question on this. The difference between the rates of the schools, is that because of the individuals rate themselves?
Yeah, actually, the salary rate for both of these are the same, but the fringe rate is
It's the fringe, okay.
obviously different.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Granger. Mr. Granger makes a motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 5, request permission, and this is to replace Steve Miller's.
Correct. Patrol car involved in a crash a few weeks ago, this is for the replacement.
Ms. Brick makes a motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 6, this would be in context of that. The insurance recovery. I talked to, Officer Hilliard yesterday, said we really didn't have an amount yet that insurance is gonna cover, but we're hoping it's probably about 95% or something.
It's gonna be really close, we may be short just a couple dollars.
Mr. Granger makes a motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 7 is an appropriation for uniform expense. This is for 20 new bulletproof vests.
Yeah, every 5 years we have a big year because the majority of the personnel need a replacement vest. They're already valid for 5 years, so this is a big year.
Mr. Kell makes the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 8, permission to declare EasyChildID.com as sole source. This is to purchase a child ID system.
This is for essentially 8 and 9. Easy Child ID is the system out there that we have at the fair, we take to preschools or whatever, to fingerprint, ID identification cards for young kids. Our system that we had was from 2007, it's no longer usable. And also that system was connected to DCGS, and DCGS no longer handles that program, the Sheriff's Association handles that program. So now it's our equipment out of date, no longer working. It's a change in software as well. I'm looking to use federal seats access for that.
Questions on that?
We just have to change the number.
Excuse me?
We just have to change the account number.
Mr. Burke makes a motion for number 8 and 9. All in favor? Opposed, carried.
You do a lot of them, Sheriff?
We do when it's up and running, it's huge. We need policing type of thing, it's a big area. Which more of them go in the parents' wallet as it gets carried around, like the driver's license, but I think that here.
Okay, any more for the sheriff on the sheriff's department? For the county jail, sorry. Number 1, position filled, this is for Neil.
The way that the driver resigns is just,
So I think at one point in time, did we discuss the mileage for this, and the feds have up the mileage for
correct.
that.
So the IRS, yes, yes, that's right. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Motion for this one. Great. Mr. Clinton makes a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 2, position filled for correction officer.
Thank you for the support last month and getting those 2 part-timers full-time. No idea of the morale that provided for the staff over there. And this is the backfill for those positions.
So we want to move 2 and 3.
Correct, please.
Mr. Kayla makes a motion for number 2 and 3. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 4, operational updates.
I don't really have anything to highlight on that. The numbers are staying pretty consistent.
Okay. Number 5, overnight travel authorization. This is for my student to attend the annual jail administrators training conference. These are October Springs.
This is put on by the Sheriff's Association.
Motion. Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke makes a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Number 6, professional service contract, and this is for revenue with the Genesee County Sheriff for the housing of the inmates.
Correct, we charge $85 a day, 6 and 7 hour later. We also amended the language for automatic renewals.
Questions? Comments?
Better get it while we can before they build their jail.
Yeah, right.
I think the project's gonna be about 3 years. I'm sure.
What are they doing now? You know?
No, it's not gonna be,
You know where Dave's ice cream is?
Yes. Yes.
Directly across the street behind the, it's east of the county building 1. In that big field. Just wants to call you about it.
I think he's gonna have to be, we just lost Jacoby.
Oh, it was gonna be this Becky
Okay.
in the corner. I need a motion for number 6 is, Mr. Granger makes the motion, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Number 8, professional service contract, and this is for.
Yeah, 8 and 9 are related. This has to do with our fingerprint system, our live scan, live fingerprint system in the jail. It not only does criminal fingerprints, but it also does civil fingerprints, i.e. pistol permits and our own employees. That system is past its usable service and some new software. So 7 is to just maintain our maintenance agreement with them until the new software is over. So,
Ms. Ryan makes the motion, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, move on to the jail kitchen, number 10, operation for turbo air cooler.
we had some unexpected failure in the big cooler. This was the repair to it. I'll have to tell you the turbo air cooler is, it sounds impressive, but I really just like it.
Mr. Brick will make the motion, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. Okay, we move on to 911, number 11, FYI, Sam Communications. The jail repeater.
Yeah, the jail, just because of the construction of the brick and the metal and stuff, the radios don't always work. We had to put a repeater in, remove our repeater to a better location because we're having communication problems. Saves it, that was. It's covered under the grant, city grant.
Questions on that? No, this is FYI.
Oh, okay.
You can do that.
I can get the next one.
Number 12, appropriation, and this is for new portable radios and new batteries for purchase, previous purchase radios by EMS and law enforcement agencies.
Correct, some of the radios that were bought years ago, I don't remember how many years ago it was now, just having some maintenance issues, need some batteries, a couple of them need to be replaced, or people need to be replaced, so we're gonna do that for $6 grand as well.
Would you like to make a motion for that, Mr. Granger? Mr. Granger makes a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried.
The only other thing is, I'm not sure if the chair, did you sign, transfer the property to Kensington, was that today or?
I did it, I did it.
There was a closing on a small piece of property in Castile that we've been working on for probably 3-4 years now, for a new public safety tower in Castile that help not only the village of Perry, but also into Letchworth Park for interrupts. And I think Mr. Van Arsdale donated the land. We paid the closing costs, but it was 3,500. At some point, maybe we'll do a joint letter thanking him or something like that. So
Absolutely, that's my thought too.
it was a nice gesture.
That eliminate the tower, it's on the water tower.
Yes.
Any other business for the sheriff?
All right, thank you very much. Have a good holiday weekend.
Well, thanks for finding out for you guys.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll start with number 1, appropriation, and this is.
This is just our previous grant here, that we have money over this year.
Motion. Mr. Carroll? Mr. Carroll made the motion, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Number 2, amendment resolution, and this is for the New York State Division of Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Services.
Yeah, that's just an oversight, I had the wrong grant here on that.
Ms. Ryan makes the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Number 3, this is for reappointment for the fire advisory board.
Yeah, for all the fire advisory board delegates, there's just one change from the Perry Fire Department.
So I have a question, and I think so if I have somebody that would be interested in taking my place, I can start that.
Yeah, we can do that. There was discussion through fire advisory about how this was set up a few years ago, as much as he also had the fire department, so the decision was we go with Covington and Orangeville. Per New York state laws, you're allowed up to 21, so we had some discussions there. If the towns didn't want to be involved in that, we could pick the other place, that was something we were having a discussion with next year. Instead of trying to act fast and do this, a couple weeks ago in the meeting, so.
So does it have to be something for the town?
It doesn't, the discussion if the towns didn't want to be, on this, that we could have a representative from the Fire Chiefs Association, EMS Council, things like that, so that discussion is going to happen over the next year, just as we go down the street of this.
So if somebody,
Here's the side.
I have a year, I can't do it now.
You can,
I quit it, I had somebody.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I have to do some talking to some people. Okay, I need a motion for this one.
Can I move it? My name's on it.
Mr. Brick makes the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Number 4, overnight travel authorization, and this is from Bill Stryker to go to the Firemen's Association Convention. Terry Town, we will August 9th through 12th. Ryan makes the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Number 5, professional service contract, and this is for ESO.
So this is for the New York State electronic PCR requirement, so in this came about, we put together a countywide program for those agencies interested, so it reduces the expense for them. So this will go with number 6, where we pay the upfront cost and then each department's invoice based on a percentage of their call volume. So that's what number 6 is, those agreements with those agencies that pay that. And just every year, we have to take a look at what those percentages are, and we adjust those, so we just have to review this every year.
Question? Motion, Mr. Granger makes the motion, all in favor?
Brian, you want to change the address on Perry to Post Office Box 205?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Granger made the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 7 is an FYI, this is for Monroe ambulance from ambulance service.
So some conversations with Monroe over the last couple of weeks, they have agreed to extend their agreement as is for right now. And then further elaborate on Monroe's side, later in the agenda, but this is just to renew the contract as is right now.
Questions on that? And move on to number 8, declare firehouse technology is sole source vendor for Wyoming County.
It's just for a piece of equipment for our own program that they have, a lot cheaper than trying to find somewhere else. It's a switch for it.
Motion. Mr. Brick makes the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 9, permission to move forward with potential $2 million fire training center renovation project. $597,200 has already been secured through the USDA.
So a couple weeks ago, sitting down with Cheryl and Janice, Mike, some concerns that Mike and I had in looking at this is from our original plans that we put together back in 2019 to today's cost. Obviously, it's shot up a lot. What Mike would need for grant manpower, we have 2 additional employees, we handle this project, the timeline, that type of stuff. So we sat down with them, had that conversation. Really from that conversation was to request permission to start this as a project, get that project out. By collaborating a little bit more, he's reached out to campus, had some conversations, get some ideas from them.
Yeah, so we got to touch base on it this morning, but so we're looking to increase that line. What we thought was going to be roughly $1 million project, $2 million. And what it does is it frees up my staff to complete projects that we have currently going, and smaller renovations that we're doing now. But as well as it limited with the weather and the time frame of which that project, the length that will take. And so I touched base with Campus Construction, we did a tour of the facility last Friday. And got them a scope of work that we were looking to accomplish. They're going to visit with their budget director or whoever does their budgeting, gives estimates, and they're going to provide a number of $2 million to them to see if it's even possible. So we should have those numbers fairly quickly. It should be possible because it's not a lot of intricate space, it's a lot of open spaces. It's not the kitchen area that we're putting it in. It's not a $25,000 to $30,000 home kitchen. It's more of a break room style, countertop sink, for your kitchen. But the price is going to be within the employees that are working on it, the cost of having it done. Materials are what materials are. But I think it was thought it'd be more beneficial to the apartments.
With that USDA grant covers basically the material, it's talking about potentially some staffing, not contracted work, but then interior finishes, things like that. So through the health department, we secured $20,000 for furniture. We have about $7,000 this year's grants towards the related stuff. And if nothing changes with the grant for next year, probably about $20,000 next year towards that type of stuff, furniture, AV stuff. So, some of the other concerns, with the IT side, we're making sure, when screens and stuff goes in, that stuff's working. So, we're talking to both sites, how we work that out. Mindset. Even though it's a pretty straightforward project, a lot of moving pieces, some of those concerns, whether the daily workflow, obviously, time out throughout the county, we're going to address those with the project. Hopefully, this can speed up the project as well. His anticipation was start March and hopefully by October we wrap up. So that was our consensus through that. So we're bringing that forward to the consideration.
The biggest concern I had was finding help for the price that we can pay here at county compared to what answer what the current rate is currently. I just don't think we'd find help. We need to get the project done correctly in a window that we have.
Be able to use funds because of the backup communications up there, some additional funding to come in.
There's not a lot of talk to Tony about that a couple times, and there's really not a lot because of how what that's geared towards is the towers. If we did anything with dispatch, we could potentially use a little bit for dispatch, but for actual construction, that's probably a lot of the grants won't touch on anything with construction.
But we able to get some of the funds from what he's saying to make that a secure dispatch center.
For security purposes, we can do some grant funding, yes. That's part of what our grant, we identified that in this year's grant, which is a 3-year grant.
So that is part of this grant that's already spoken, right?
No, this is a separate. So this is through our SHS.
Oh, okay.
We were just awarded here a couple months ago. We put in for 17, maybe it's higher than that, 17,000 might be higher than that. So we are looking to utilize that grant for the security related things, and we tie that to a critical structure. As far as 911 funds, it's right now, which available for this.
Because I just feel, my personal feeling now is we got millions of dollars up there in a dispatch center as a secondary. But it's not what we should have.
Yep, so we
I'm
have,
not gonna get into it because we're on camera, but it's, I don't think it's where it should be.
yeah, when the project is said and done, there will be cameras going on all the tower sites. So there will be some additional cameras off there, in the parking lots, things like that, as well as card access will be out there for accountability, things like that.
Good.
What's the scope of the project? I know siding was gonna be replaced, and is there putting an addition on? I know we talked about that at one
Would
time.
be addition and everything for classroom space. So basically, stripping the exterior, the interiors, replacing siding, installation, drywalls, furnishings. We'll have to be a little bit of parking lot work just because that does, as soon as you go out of the building, drops right down. So to make up for what happens there, and some changes there. Looking at trimming back some of the grass area in front of the tower by the cold storage building, it's really wet all the time up there. But there's no purpose for that to be grass, so it's an increase in parking, especially a couple weeks ago, there was about 30 cops up there, some training, and the park all the way out to the bird tower, so you also some parking there to bring that as well.
Yeah, this would be a full renovation. This would be complete skinning, all the doors, windows of the structure itself, and then everything. Installation, electrical, communication, plumbing, updating, so we have ADA compliant restrooms, at least one ADA compliant restroom up there. We do want to put in a shower in the other restroom. So it's, there's a lot of details to go into a plan like this, instead of just spitballing numbers, and figuring in-house what we could do. There's some planning that's involved, so it's a start now for, try to be that January point to have a good scope of work together and plan it, so we just hit the ground running when the weather does break.
I got a couple questions. Gina, that's to help with this. What do we already talk about for ARPA funds towards this? Did you set a number? We didn't set that number.
We put it on the list and never really talked about it, never really put anything towards it. I'm gonna tell you, we got about 300,000 of ARPA left.
So Brian, I will tell you that I did plan next year, whether it was in-house or not in-house, for a capital improvement line, to put $400,000 to $500,000 in that property, knowing that that grant was coming. So we would have had the 1 million or 1.1 to put in, but now we're talking about, putting it out to bid and contracting.
Is that double the cost of that?
At this point.
I think when we were talking about all that, Brian, we didn't know exactly how much money we were gonna get through the.
Right. No, not to be the naysayer.
Anyway,
We talked about 400,000 or 500,000. I remember that number. And now we're talking about triple that, taxpayer pocket. It's a big thing, bite.
it is, but we need it. That place definitely needs it.
And when this project gets done, if it does get done, let's put it that way, are we planning on using it more than we do for training purposes as far as fire departments and EMS?
Yeah, it's used quite a bit now, especially the last couple of months.
With the tower, yes, well, we're talking about the building itself, not the tower or the grounds, we're just
So in
talking.
the building itself, there's a lot of agencies that go up there and use it, law enforcement agencies from around West New York, federal agencies. We have had some interest from other groups as well, but it just didn't meet the size capacity they needed to do it up there. But it's, overall, the campus is used over 200 times a year. That does account for all the fire training as well, but just, classroom, there's a lot there. A lot of the county meetings have bounced around, because of COVID, we had to bounce those around, but also need space up there. We use some of these trainings, we have 40, 50 coming in, we just don't have the room up there. So that one classroom, I believe it was like 60, 70, kind of one size classroom would fit. They could accommodate that. So fortunately, some of the fire departments have stepped up and allowed us to use their facilities. At no cost, but there's sometimes if there's a lot of ask when we're moving courses around, and we're running the course at 6-8 times a month, and we're asking, 1, 2, 3 meetings at the facilities while based on their schedules.
Now, our outside agencies, do we charge them?
We don't, and what that is a trade-off with the sheriff. What he gets out of that, they're buying the backstops and they're turning in their bullets. So that he's using that, so it's kind of a wash there. So we discussed that, and we charge say $100. Well, he's getting $100 worth of stuff, so he thought it was a fair wash. And the bulk of the agencies, I would say non-county agencies that really use that. There's maybe 2 or 3. Federal probation is one of them that comes to mind. I know city of Decatur comes out every now and then and uses it. But the bulk of it's our law enforcement agencies, our sheriff's office. Requiring us agencies to use it.
So with the idea that we're gonna put out the bid, there is wasted space on the grounds. Cold storage is half wasted, the way it's set up. Is there some ways of utilizing what we have, instead of putting an addition on, to cut back on, downsize of the project to afford to pay outside contractors to do the job, is what I'm looking at. And I'm just spitballing here and looking for something, but some of that storage where we got the 4 bays for the trucks, a lot of that stuff will all be put on cold storage. Doesn't need to be kept in where it's warm, including, the spare vehicles we had, and use that as classroom space.
So those first 2 bays will be converted over to a large classroom. So that does move us over to those 2 bays. With the cold storage, in order to put more stuff in there, dropping stuff around a lot. It's very challenging right now. Not so much pulling the trailer out, parking the trailer out there, it's extremely challenging. If there's 100 more feet on that building, or if there's overhead doors on the ends, it would make life a lot easier. We could do overhead doors, and like I talked about that, essentially wall off half of it, use the other half. We looked at, we converted that building over to a training center, demolish what we have. There's no water out there, obviously we got areas out there that we can't touch, things like that. So, we haven't looked at that stuff and try to look at the practicality of that. I discussed the EMS part of it. There's also some concerns there about what we need up there for space that might alter our plans a little bit. As we start to look down and look over the future needs to be able to handle that now, and the building can expand to those needs versus cutting ourselves short and something. So.
I understand what you're talking about, Brian, but I think if you start skimping on the project, you're gonna end up in the future having spending more money to do what needs to be done.
Well, like I said, the cold storage building.
I've seen that in the past, believe me.
Well, the cold storage building is a great building,
Right,
poorly designed, and we only use half of that space.
right.
It's a waste of money. We need to utilize that better. And yeah, it's gonna cost a bunch of money to put doors and stuff on it, but the building was not set up at all the way it should have been, and rather than keep adding on up there, can we do a better job of forecasting and putting things together?
I feel you're still gonna have to make that cold storage building, weather tight enough, it's just a tin building, not stitched insulation. Originally, when that building was put up, it was supposed to have electric, and then it was added. I think you either put it into the training center, or you let the training center go, and then you're gonna have to build something somewhere else, and it's just gonna get more costly down the road. But I understand I also understand and thought that process out, how can we utilize that better? But that building is being intended for for its housing, so there's a lot of equipment within fire training center, you can't put out in cold storage. I mean, there's 2 of those bays are fire equipment and the PPE for the county. You might as well just store it outside of your car, because that's all that tin and shell is at that point. It's a concrete slab made to store trailers, a cold storage apartment. But it's a 30 by 50 foot addition on the existing building is not, in this project, I don't feel it's gonna break the bank, because the rest of the facility needs so much work in it.
A lot of money,
Did you?
above and beyond what we planned, what we already talked about. It's,
Yeah, and like I said, I'd love to be able to do it, but I would need to hire guys for rate anyway to even get employees on site to do the work. I'm lucky I've got the guys I do for $21 an hour that is not gonna put up a building for us.
that wasn't encouraged when we started talking about this. I'm not trying to say no, but, you know, when this project was sold to us, and we got the grant money, we were gonna do the work in-house. Nobody asked how, but
Well, 3 years ago, wages were way different too, and the workforce was way different 3 years ago than it is currently. But we have not put any money but filters, toilet paper into the thing, because it's falling apart around it. We would just be pissing more money away in service.
Any more questions, comments, discussion? Okay. Yes, I need a motion for permission to move forward with the potential $2 million renovation project.
What does it mean that permission move forward, Mike?
We need to open a project, we need to begin, we need to contact campus, we need to have somebody design and get architects involved in the full process now. It's not just working with Don and coming up with our own plan, you know, going out to bid too, that's where the costs are.
I think the thought was, if you give us a cap, then we can say, okay, campus construction, actually do some work and produce some numbers, but we don't wanna come back and say, here's a project for $2 million, and then have everyone say, no, I'm not gonna do that. Because now we're paying someone to do that, get this stuff together, and now you guys are like, yeah, we're not doing that.
We're just looking.
So this is, yes, that's basically what we're looking for, is permission to move forward up to $2 million, you know, to, you know, get a plan together and see what we can get for that money.
where are we gonna get the extra $1 million from, Janice?
Where?
Yeah.
So we've got the USDA, which is 600, we've got the 400 that we had talked about, potentially in the CIP. And we've got 15 million in fund balance that we need to use in one-time showers. Because this is that, we claimed on ARPA funds that we had already spent to get it through, so it clears it up, so it's a little looser to spend and not have to track it. So we've got about $4 million there.
Mr. Britton, you make the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner, okay. All in favor?
That was, you gave it
Aye.
too late, we discussed it before.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, discussion EMS operations.
So starting with Monroe, over the course of last month, as I said, we had multiple meetings with Don. They did agree to move forward with a contract extension as is. Previously, I had mentioned that they were gonna submit for their own certificate of need. For the county, I met with Tom, the president CEO, Monday. He wanted to meet for lunch, we had a discussion. There he came out and asked, what the county's plans were. He was very hesitant to pay for the CON, it's a pretty costly process, you don't guarantee either you're gonna get it. He didn't know what their long-term viability was to the county, what the county's wishes were for now. So I told him where we sit right now is what the resources are that they have available, are really working for us. Day to day, the resources are all good for it. And, based on looking at our call volume, looking at our drop calls, looking at the units are staggered, we need to make some adjustments there. So, he indicated that, regardless of whatever plan, happened going forward, the barriers that they identified with this building issue would exist for any company that people will ever see the company. So, that was one of his concerns. His other concern was their ability to continue to operate without a subsidy. So I asked him multiple times what that looks like without an answer. So on the conversation Monday, I told him here's what we're going to be looking for resources. I asked him to please draft us up some numbers on what that would look like. Actually, by the end of July, we'll explain we're going into our budget process so we can start to look at what the subsidy would look like. But he felt that he could continue to operate in the county without some sort of subsidy for their operation. So that's where we stand now. At this point, I still don't know if they're going to pursue a CON or not. I need to believe they're not going to, just because of the cost and there's a very good possibility the state not award that. So with that, back in December when we met with the elected officials and fire departments, we've been gathering all that information from different counties and specifically looking at a couple of counties, primarily Livingston County for their operation. Been reaching out to fire departments individually to try to have some conversations, get some feedback, things like that. So we've been compiling our numbers and so the board is spread of the public health fellow she's got is able to compile a lot of that stuff and help us stick that together. Had some discussions with Janice on the preliminary numbers and what this look like. So we now have that presentation wrapped up. Basically coming down to two models. That would be a county-run system or payment or whatever that subsidy is. So I had a conversation with the chairwoman. I'd like to come to maybe the whole of July to present those proposals, run through what that model looks like, run through what those numbers are, and then get some direction from the county and what we want to do. So part of that conversation, as I mentioned, the training centers, that rough design that we had, we looked at that, what that worked, what the county has to get into the EMS business, what does this look like down the road. Statistically, when you look at our time distances from where the Monroe units are staged down to the county, based on their call volume, there's some changes we might be making there. The training center has come down to one of those spots, so we can be the bulk of the areas that are primarily hit by the unit down here at the hospital within about 12 minutes compared to some of the time we've shown with areas further. So that's one area we look at. The other thing we look at is they're paying Sheldon Fire Company right now to stage out of the building. So if that's something we pull into ours, that saves some expense there. Where we outfit equipment, where we supplies, things like that. Especially we can see right on the wall what's going to happen down the road as we go. Livingston County is a kind of example. That model continues to expand. Just within the last couple of months, they've been asked to expand more as another agency shut down. So it's a matter of time before we start seeing that more here in Wyoming County. You're seeing that throughout New York State. Niagara County just within the last 2 weeks was moving forward on their system. Laura sent us some information from a conference she had a couple weeks ago with 5 other counties. We're doing something to get the issues right now. So with that system, I have some information in there where some changes that are going to impact the fire service now with the cost recovery. We've been looking at some ways there to possibly make some arrangements that can help, not eliminate that expense to them, but potentially reduce that expense to them. Depending on how that plays out, there's still a lot of interpretation there from different lawyers on what that means. So we'll look at that training center design, and how we're going to meet those things going forward. But I think overall, we were somewhat surprised by the numbers. We feel pretty comfortable, as comfortable as we can be. And Supervisor Brick can attest to how hard it is to budget and everything when you get an EMS operation. That's one of the big things that And Karen Dewar over at Livingston County that runs theirs, she's made it very clear, it's very hard to budget for this because you just don't know what you're gonna be asked to do as far as, increase your call capacity. And you don't know what the patients are gonna be, what the versus that brings in. We use a lot of the numbers that she's provided to us, we're looking at our variances, things like that in county, so we feel pretty comfortable in these numbers that this would be where we land, so come forward to committee of the whole next month and present that to the board, so for consideration.
Are you doing it in July one? And then actually, so.
We'll be on to the facilities that are homework she's got us on.
There won't be one in August, right?
So with the timing of that as well, based on what Monroe had indicated before, they were gonna, they were putting in for CO1, they were gonna do it this month, which then would hit where that would be voted on in September. The fact that they're not doing that, we still have to do something with Billy, with them regardless, whatever that is, whatever that turns out to be. You still have to take care of that in New York State. So I think timing wise, everything kind of shapes up good. If we got a path A or path B, we're gonna have to pick one, this one is. It's just gonna be which one is, this board feel we should go.
So, my last month was Monroe's having problems because we're not transferring out of the hospital, we're not getting the calls that they need to fund their business down here. But yet, and I'm just speaking from Attica, we're taking patients out, we're taking inmates out of the prison for them multiple times the past month. Those are their calls.
Yep. Yeah, and again,
They're complaining about they're not getting the calls, but they're not covering the calls.
their staffing is a problem. I had a conversation with their operations manager here in the county just the other day. They've been running double paramedics a lot because they can't get EMTs to come to work. But any given day, some days we have one unit up, some days we have 3 units up. There's no consistency there. The transfers have come up a little bit in the hospital over the last couple of months. We've started to see those transfers come up. From a business standpoint, that's a very good thing. From the 911 standpoint, it's not a good thing. It's tying up that resource 3-4 hours. No doubt their expenses up with the salaries, with fuel, things like that, which I'm sure they obviously have a lot of overhead in the corporation as well. I don't know what's happening up in Rochester, how that impacts this operation. I have no idea there. Some of the numbers that he has shown us, on their stats for their rents, they're not meeting what they feel that they need to meet there. Whatever those metrics were that they established. So it's a tough one because again, we need additional resources. We're looking at our drop calls in the county. We have one agency with 30%, we have one agency with 20%. There are 2 of our highest volume call agencies in the county. It's even Perry being down in ambulance right now is kind of hurt us a little bit. Is there a way to get that fixed? Because they're a busy department. They cover a lot more than just the top of Perry. And then in fact, the cost recovery, what that means for fire departments. That's a big unknown. There's some potential for some big expenses for some of these agencies with that legislation that it's too early to know how that'll play out. And the prison is busy. There's a lot of, just look how many times Attica is going there. The prison is putting out a lot of calls.
Right, and that's where I find it hard to listen to them complain about not getting calls when they're dropping calls in my district. And it's discouraging and it also leads me to believe how if Monroe Ambulance is having a hard time keeping us suffice down here, how we as a county can run our own ambulance service.
Yeah,
I'm not for a county ambulance service.
And it's, unfortunately, you can't predict what the call volume is going to be every day. Right. Yesterday, we barely had any calls in the county. And then we turned around and had 3 calls in the district the other day. We can come up with any ambulance. And it's not just Monroe that's struggling, many commercials. Livingston County struggling a lot of times as well, where they're being requested in Ohio County, they don't have the resources available. Because they're just trying to handle the call line of their agency or their county. So it's a global problem, it's staffing, a lot of comes on the staff, it's just like many things, people aren't signing up, to do the work, and that's one thing that, when we're looking at our numbers, I really wanted to go hard look at wages for that. Again, pay these people what they deserve. When you look at the training they go through, when you kind of compare, law enforcement, EMS, look at the training they go through, it's about the same amount we break down. But, EMS is facing a lot of the same hazards law enforcement does. They don't have a gun, they don't have keys, things like that, in these situations. So for them to go out and make $15 an hour, we could make more than that at a fast food restaurant. That's why people are going to that field. So, looking at the wages, what I proposed in there would be something that I hope we would be able to bring these employees in, bring them through some of these other agencies like the nurses and places like that, especially when we have nursing health benefits on top of that, to be able to feel that. And knowing what Monroe has right now for staff, obviously they need a little bit more because they can't cover it all if they need to, so.
When they have to transfer those folks out of the prison, do they come to the hospital or do they have to take them in the city or?
Done both. I think most of them come to our side. But we get requests all the time that they want to make the city.
At one time, it kind of was just if it was an corrections officer, civilian, but if it's,
Right, oh, we always do those.
but if it's an inmate, it's different.
Who wants to be inmates?
Monroe has a contract with both facilities for inmates, it's when they're not available, and nurses not available, then it goes to that.
And the other night, the guy they had, he sent 2 guys with us because they didn't trust the guy. So 2 guys said right there on top, pretty much on top of the guy.
So when you take them, then you leave the guards at the hospital, wherever.
Yeah, the guys don't leave that guy.
Any more questions, comments, discussion on this? Any others for Brian? Okay, thank you, very good forward, thank you.
How are you?
Good. One report for Mary. Copy of that, any questions? Everything's going well, I take it?
Yep, everything's going well. Construction's still moving along.
Good.
Delayed a few of the projects just because of cost of materials, but still things are moving along.
I thought I read that some of the materials going down. A little.
Yeah,
Like,
hoping that continues.
yes,
Yeah.
you do. Okay, any questions down the list? Okay, move on to 2 years income statement.
Yeah, and you can just see it, where we're at with the revenues and purchase expenses on page 3 there. Remaining balance of the budget is there's 286, 831, so that's for remaining available. So you can turn to that.
Move on to 4, property maintenance task force, Shea Johnson.
Yeah, so just FYI, I did touch base on this a little bit yesterday during the planning committee. I actually had a couple of photographs during the planning committee of it too. A couple of property maintenance things we're working on. There's some substantial large project though, Genesee Falls, the 2 buildings on corner of Main and Hamilton. The old Oliver Restaurant, those of you who remember the establishment. It's in very sad shape. An endangered collapse in Wall Streets. We have started the process on that. I have been in contact with Luann Roberts. I had a presentation with the board down there, which they've asked me to come down and talk about. Amongst some other things on how to handle these large scale property maintenance in the town, going over the process and what they can do for future to help mitigate those in the future. So I'm working through that with them. These are usually typically very slow moving projects that require a lot of babysitting, but we'll see how that goes. So just giving you an update on that one.
Questions on that? Okay, number 5, FYI, transfer 2016 Ford Escape to the property.
So we did, I visited Conroy's this morning for payment of the new vehicle, which leaves us a 2016 Ford Escape. Typically, I would transfer this to the property, to say, no vehicle. That's the vehicle that I'm expected, sitting on the county highway for the last couple of months, so they are short. So I thought was to transfer this 2016 real property, so that this area has a vehicle.
Okay.
All right.
Any questions, comments on that one? Okay. Anything else for Don? Thank you.
Yeah.
And good forward. Norm, you're next. And could I ask that after you come back, if you don't work out, do you want to stay on?
Sure.
Do a discussion? Okay, move on to number 1, amendment to salary schedule G.
Just one question on this, and I guess this is Cheryl, so what I'm really looking at is assist to reflect fringe benefits. I'm only looking at the portion of the fringe benefits which include health and medical, and the other scheduled as benefits, like vacation times, et cetera, et cetera. Just health and medical, that was pretty much what we put into our budget. It's all paid for by state money, and we want to keep our people happy because they're difficult to replace.
Sure. Okay. Someone like to make a motion for this one? Ms. Ryan makes a motion, all in favor?
You're having too much fun.
So if I'm checking someone's, if I know someone's on Schedule G and I'm checking their stuff, is that gonna be written somewhere? How am I gonna know? Because we have Schedule G people all over the place.
It's in the note section of those, G, you'll notice that. Because Laura's got some in there like that too.
Okay, number 2, grant application. And the New York State Division of Criminal Justice.
So when the new budget came out, I noticed that there was a $102 incarceration program, I think it's $4 million category available to all counties. I attended a webinar on it. And we had to complete our application by June 24th. It's a multi-page typical federal type application. What we're looking for, if we get this, and we'll know in August, is to increase our social worker capacity for alternatives to incarceration. And since Don and Joan are here, what I'm looking for is, we have a lot of activity primarily in our treatment court programs. This proposal would expand our ability to advocate for alternatives to incarceration and people who are not otherwise eligible for what we used to call drug court, now we call treatment court. Because we have a lot of individuals who are either non-residents or there are other reasons why they can't enter treatment court. So we're looking for 2 things. 1, an attorney to focus on alternative to incarceration programs in both treatment court and in this proposal. And 2, social worker, which is the primary person involved in finding the alternatives to incarceration that the court and the VA might accept. So there's money out there. There's certainly money for at least 55 counties. And if we get a piece of it, we'll know in August. But this is just an application that went out. And again, we know county fiscal impact whatsoever. It's all paid for by state of Florida. I was waiting.
Carol makes a motion. Just said the word, no.
Yeah. Not out of your pocket.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Number 3, overnight travel authorization for a whole bunch of it and go
This is, of course,
Saratoga Springs.
right, this is a yearly program, which is primarily a continuing legal education program. That pretty much covers the entire mandate of how many hours of continuing legal education lawyers need each year as they have to register to maintain their license. We've gone to it every year that it was live, it's back live again. It is run by the New York State Defenders Association, which I am a vice president of, and I take every lawyer that can make it because it is an invaluable training program. It's not like the stuff we talked about last time where I had lawyers going into a trial practice thing. This is pure education on changes in the law that have occurred over the past year, including the Court of Appeals update, federal update. I understand there have been some changes in federal law. I'm not going to look into that, but I think handling contraceptives in my account, that's what's going on right now. But other than that, so it is an education that they're actually working quite hard. I'm not going to tell you what we do after 5 o'clock, but from 9 to 5, it's work.
You gonna take a bus so you all ride together?
No, we're not taking a bus. I remember taking the band when we used to go to the NISAC meetings. But no, given the travel issues.
Judge Dan had a band, that works.
Yeah, well, it's all paid for, but we're not paying anything, okay? It's all coming out of grant money. So it's built in for our education. And yeah, gas, it's different. They don't have county gas cards, okay?
Okay, someone like to make a motion for this one? Mr. Granger.
I'm still stuck on a 9 to 5 zone work. For what reason, Joe? I said I'm still stuck on that 9 to 5 being all work. I know we're all, I want to give you some updates that are not on the agenda.
Let's get this and then we'll go from there. Okay, so Mr. Granger made the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. Go ahead.
So the last time I was here, I talked about the budget was somewhat changed this year. As most of you know, we get a grant on a yearly basis to handle our parole program. And it comes out to, in the past, it's been $600,000 statewide, with New York City getting nothing, and Wyoming County getting 31%, which is $186,000. And that's the basic format for adequate legal aid, which also has some other money as well. So we do all the parole work out of that. This year, that money went in a different direction. There was $1.375 billion allocated to defense, but it was in a pocket of money that was not divided by the budget itself for domestic violence, for parole, and for other things. And we didn't know how it was going to be divided because it was left up to the Senate majority leader to actually divide it up. Well, the last day of the session, which I think was June 2nd, there was legislation where the Senate approved $600,000 statewide, 31% Wyoming County. So we're back in the game without any issues. We were just audited, by the way, on that particular grant from a 4-month period from 2019. We had no problems with the audit. Present contract is going through, and the next year's contract is also there. So we're in good shape on that. I want to really call your attention. I noticed in reading some of the resolutions that went through this week that there was a $20,000 appropriation to the assigned counsel program because they were short of money based on the numbers of cases that we're dealing with. This really should be fair warning to this county and every other county in the state. The 18B program pays lawyers when we have a conflict, a private lawyer has to handle the case. These lawyers get paid $75 an hour for felonies, $60 an hour for misdemeanors. The cap on felonies are $40 to $100. There's been a lot of traction to increase those rates. And the increase was pretty much matched the feds. And the feds pay, for example, $150 an hour for felony work. And that is the proposed legislation to increase 18B rates on felonies to 150, I think misdemeanors to 90 an hour. That's doubling what we're paying now. So if the assigned counsel program is running out of money and had to put another 20 grand into it, double what they're spending if the legislation goes through. The legislation that we have all supported, and that's both prosecution, the judiciary, and defense lawyers, says there should not be an unfunded mandate. And it requires that if the legislation goes through, that Louis Graham did not go through this session, that the difference in the money is being paid for by the state and not the counties. The governor had a slightly different idea. The governor proposed, because there's litigation on this as well, as the state is being sued because of these programs that cannot support the panel lawyers and more people dropping out left and right. The governor's proposal was, okay, we'll double the rates. No problem. And the counties pay the difference. That was the end of that negotiation. The litigation continues. I suspect that the New York State Association of Counties should really get involved in this, because there's no question in my mind those rates are going to increase. And it's very important, of course, that it not be on the burden of the counties, because it's going to be substantial. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of the assigned counsel program, and I was talking to the county attorney just when we were discussing the last major event that occurred in this county. The funding to increase, not the lawyers' fees, because that's a legislative matter, but to increase monies to run these programs is controlled by the same entity that gives us most of our grants, Indigent Legal Services. And I've been talking to them for several years now. Most of the attorneys that are assigned to handle cases when our office cannot, especially in felonies, I don't know any of them are from Wyoming County. I think almost all of the assigned counsel people that we get in are from our neighboring counties, Genesee, Livingston, Monroe, and Erie, some from Allegheny as well. It makes no sense for each of those counties to duplicate the administrative services, especially with the change in this county. As Dan Nelson really disappears and the county attorney is really a full-time county employee or however it's working. So I talked to Jennifer and really we're trying to put together a regional assigned counsel program because we're regional anyway. And I've asked ILS to contact the leadership in both Genesee and Wyoming County to set up, because it shouldn't be coming from me, it should be coming from the funding source, to say, get your act together. They can't pay the lawyers more, but they can set up situations, for example, where they have social workers on staff there, they have investigators on staff there, so you don't have to apply to the court to use county money to pay for those services. They can be paid for by the state. So that's coming, and I think it's going to be pushed heavily by our funding agency, the Indigent Legal Services agency, which is a state agency. It's a really good idea because there's no reason for us to duplicate these things. Each county can have its own titular head of its county's program, but it should be really on a regional basis, especially given the global cooperation stuff that we do every other aspect of our rural county situations. So that's just a heads up on what's coming, I think, once we go back to work, be it September or whenever I know the legislature is in session now, but that's just not done. So when they come back in the next session. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. And the other things that Joe's still producing wine, I take it, right?
I'm here.
You want to enjoy it? You want to get on? All right.
Yeah, you have to go back to work, Don. I can't ask you to stay afterwards.
Yeah,
I want to have.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna sound the same for that meeting, but I can't get to that meeting unless it's not talking.
Oh, okay.
Really? He says that to me all the time.
Okay, come on up, Don.
No, she's here.
No, I asked Joe.
Because I don't know why the regional conflict defenders thing hasn't happened yet. It's way overdue. There's a way efficient way of handling things. They're all the same people. They're all the same attorneys. They're Genesee County people who handle cases in Orleans and Wyoming and Allegheny. So why is there 4 or 5 different administrators with the same people? Because there just aren't any people, that's the other problem.
So the raising of the rates.
They need to raise the rates because the pool is becoming so incompetent that it's being scary. I mean, seriously. I mean, you're competing, you're getting young attorneys who you're competing with, either coming to DA positions, you know, who are making way more than $7,000 or close to it. Or they're going to the private sector where they're making, you know, at least billing $200, $250 an hour. You know, so, and with gas, the way it is, why would you come out here? You know, so, I fully support that, however, it would be nice if it was not another mandate. So, but I think the way you get there is by making everything regional. If everything's regional, there has to be more state than county, so that's just a cost. I have two quick things, both are overnight travel authorizations to the same conference. Chelsea and I are going to a couple of different ones on July 24th, 29th. And there are already costs, we're gonna take it out of C's assets, but they usually pay, there is no cost for the training itself, and they usually pay for the hotel for the nights we're there. I just put that in there just in case. Second one is to send them to the week-long, it's like the new prosecuting course that they have, so you see that there. So that's what I'm looking for.
Someone like to make a motion, Mr. Granger makes the motion for both. 1 and 2, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. And I have one more on here, 3, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask if we can table that. This grant award is, over a month, almost 2 months overdue. They said they were gonna mount the award on next date. We keep asking, is it coming, is it coming? Apparently the TOPS shooting had something to do with the release of this because all their assets went out there to help victims and stuff, which is fine. So I was kind of hoping it would come before today. I thought it was easier to put it on here and take it off.
No, we're just gonna postpone it, and he'll bring it back in Friday.
So there's nothing we can do about that. There is another thing we just got in the email, I don't know if you saw it, Joan, that Discovery grant.
$140,000.
It's $140,000. And I think we just use that, we just get the money in because it offsets the cost of, say, the Discovery coordinator, extra probation and stuff like that. We just put it in our budget and pay it, right? That's what
It was in the state budget, so they just distributed.
I guess, but you have to show them like what you're paying it for, like what discovery costs have you incurred, like storage fees. So, which is good, I mean, we always complain, we don't get money. This is $147,000 that they're paying to help out to offset, so. I'll work with you on that. I assume Kelly would do the same thing, what Janice put together a spreadsheet and send it off, so.
Any other questions? And do you have a few minutes?
I do.
Good. Okay, now I would like a motion to go into an executive session for possible litigation.
Make motion.
Okay. Mr. Carroll, all in favor? Opposed, carried. I'm gonna close the doors so we can step through this one.
That's what,
Yeah, yeah. He's kicking me out.